Good morning. Since I am the first time here, I thought I'd give you the first 96 minutes about me. So, not really. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you today. It's a sincere pleasure, really, to be with you. And it's always comforting to be around folks like you that have the latitude, aptitude, and attitude of openness. Openness to the divine spirit within you that allows you to know exactly what was just sung about. That we truly are a gift on this earth to give God's love to each other. And that you get together on Sunday and celebrate it. The title of my talk this morning is The Exuberant Receiver. And it's about receiving. And receiving what? The love, right? The love and the beauty of God. I'll discuss with you what an exuberant receiver is. I want to hit some unreceiving things that we do, and also some solutions to those, as well as becoming acutely aware of receiving God's grace, and knowing that it is the source of all things. So, exuberant really isn't a word that I would use in general conversation. You know what I mean? In fact, it was mentioned last week by Waldo. But nevertheless, our affiliated New Thought Network, which Reverend Carla and I are members, last month had an annual convention at the Unity Village in Missouri, and the title had exuberance in it. So there was many different definitions about it, but I want to take a short sideways here. How many of you have been to Unity Village? Oh, then you know what I'm talking about. That is one of the most beautiful places, and I really have to say that one of the greatest experiences in my life, really, has been spending a half hour in that Silent Unity prayer room and joining 128 years of contiguous 24 hours a day prayer. It was just awesome. So if you haven't been there and you get a chance, stop in. Very, very sacred place. Now, the definition of exuberance includes a lot of high-level enthusiasm, becoming very excited, like that first song. That was pretty awesome. And full of energy. So here's what Charles Fillmore said, and I believe he got it right when he said this: I fairly sizzle with zeal, energy, and enthusiasm, eager to do that which ought to be done by me today. Now I'm going to revisit that a little bit later in this talk. So as we celebrate the love of God that is freely and deliberately bestowed upon us today, can we do that exuberantly?
Yes.
Samuel, thank you for leading the crowd. Can I ask that one more time? Can we do that exuberantly?
Yes.
There you go. Good job. Well done. Now, Ernest Holmes is the founder of religious science and wrote Science of Mind textbook. Therefore, our belief sets the limit to our demonstration of the desired principle we wish to experience. Like joy, harmony, peace, and, of course, love. God is ready to fulfill everything. Because God is infinite, so are we. It is not a question of God's willingness. It is entirely a question of our own receptivity. I may go out on a bit of a limb here, but let me ask you this. Well, let me state, in my life, I've heard things like, It's better to give than receive. How about this one? Give until it hurts. Ow. And, and God loves a cheerful giver. And how about heaven? You can buy your way in. But rarely do we hear anything about the importance of receiving. Thus, we have perhaps concluded that giving is altruistic and holy, whereas receiving is selfish and unholy. But is that really true? I don't think so. Because God is infinite in wholeness, and so are we. We must live in a balanced state of giving and receiving. If we only give, we wind up resentful and frustrated. If we only receive, we become stagnant and bloated. You may have heard of Ernest, or what's his face? Waldo said, get your bloated nothingness out of the way. To truly live in balance and beauty, we must really do both. So I invite you now. I like the participatory nature of talks. So I want to ask you guys to do me a favor right now. And I want to give you 60 seconds. And when you hear that, it's over. I would like you to bring forth into your memory the very moment that the divine spirit was made manifest in your heart, right here. Could be the first aha you had, perhaps, or maybe something very, very recent. A feeling of memory where your heart smiled so broadly that it came right through your face. Take a few moments now and bring that memory to the forefront of your consciousness, and I will time that. Ready, go. I cut that a little short because I've got so much to cover. So my question is, how did that make you feel? You know, when I was writing this talk, I went through that little exercise for myself, and I wept. I wept because I had tears of sadness and tears of joy and happiness as well. See, there was a time in my life when I thought that I really didn't want to live anymore. And I had a lot of stuff going on in my life that was not good. I was wrapped up in a marriage that was not very happy. I had 3 children to raise. My finances were a complete fiasco. I was addicted to alcohol and drugs. And I was really alone. I was alone in so many ways that I came to the solution, the conclusion, that probably the best thing that I could do is move over on this world and let it go and get out and end my life. And so, as God would have it, I'm still here. A really astonishing thing occurred. This is somewhat familiar to you guys, but in Arizona, of course, they have the canals, right? So I went to a canal to drown myself. And you know those grates are like this with the and if you went underneath, the weight of the water would just keep you there. So that was my plan. And as sad as it sounds, I went there, and guess what?
No water.
The canal is empty. Now, as a result of that astonishing event, I received a life-saving message. And that message was a wake-up call from some God that I had turned off a while back. And their spiritual switch was turned on that I was oblivious to up until that moment. And when that happened, I became a believer. And I became a receiver. And I want to share this story with you. It takes a lot of courage on occasion to reach out. And I was at, Carla was doing a women's class one Saturday morning here in September. And I was over at the Dream Cafe, sitting outside in one of those nice little tables, waiting for my friend to show up. And I got a phone call. And it was an out-of-state phone call. And I thought, well, usually that's one of two things. Either it's a customer of mine, which nobody calls me on Saturday, or it's one of those calls that says, hi, your credit card is, forget that. So I answered anyway, and I said, this is Mike, because you don't say hello, right? And so this person on the other end of the line, this guy said to me, is this Michael Ryan? I said, yeah, it is. Who is this? And I was, Bob. I'll use Bob. He said, my name's Bob. And I said, Bob, do I know you? He said, I don't think so. He lives in a southern state, Carolina, Georgia, way down there. And he said to me, I got your name off the web. The internet had a list of practitioners. And a practitioner in religious science is a prayer person, right? You're one of those before you become a minister. So I was elated. I thought, oh my God, I get an opportunity to pray maybe here. What's going on? So I asked the guy, what's up? And he said, well, my 4.5-year relationship just bombed. I knew she was the one. This guy was so sad. I knew she was the one. I've got this problem going. I got that problem going. We just bought a house together, and now we got to do this and got to do that. So I thought today would be my last day on earth. Wow. Whew. I mean, it brings chills to me at this very moment. And why so? Because I'd been there. And I knew what that felt like. And so I told him what I'll tell you, and that is that you are all God's emissaries. You are the peaches of the tree, the joy of life, that God does not live without you, right? And I just grabbed this guy's consciousness as hard as I could to bless this guy. And all of a sudden, I also said something like, you know what you need to do, Bob? Think, think, think. Where did I get that? That's from Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I said, think about what you're doing. Think about, he goes, really? Well, I'm in AA too. Now, here we go. There's absolutely 2 levels of consciousness and connection right there. It took a lot of courage for him to first make that call. Where did he get that inspiration? It wasn't from the neighbor. Where did I get the inspiration? We were both receiving the same message at the same time. Oh, it was an awesome experience. So here's what happened. A couple days later, I called him up. No answer. And I thought, oof. But then he returned my call. And he said, thank you so much for that time you spent with me on the phone. But really and truly, I had to thank him even greater than he thanked me, just because I had that opportunity. And what a treat. What a treat that is. And I am a believer, and I am a receiver. In the Science of Mind textbook, receptivity is defined as this: the power or capacity of receiving impressions. The Spirit can only give us what we take. And I imagine it this way, well, I'm not a huge baker, but when you bake bread and you throw that yeast stuff in there and it begins to go like this, that's what Ernest Holmes is talking about. Put your hand on there. That impression on that is the impression of the consciousness in the mind. That once that impression occurs, then other things happen. You think it, you act on it, just like that other song spoke about this morning. This begs the question, how much can I receive? Right? In the Unity Classic, written by Ernest Fox, titled The Mental Equivalent, he states, the key to life is to build the mental equivalence of what you want to experience and erase the equivalence of what you don't want. Everything that you see in this material world and everything that you feel is an effect of what it is that you've been thinking and cultivating in your life. And so that cause is the Divine Spirit. Take it back. Divine Spirit. So sometimes what gets in the way is in that receptivity. Sometimes on this plane we have certain things that get in the way of this receptive nature of the divine. For example, how about receiving with strings? I remember when I was just a youngster, I'm number 5 of 8 children, so we didn't get a ton of presents at Christmas. But my brother, oldest brother, 17 months, and he got a box and I got a box, and they were very much alike. So he opened his. Oh my gosh, it was the coolest thing. It was a little plastic red or a blue car, remote car. And of course, in those days, it was a battery. And you could go forward, and you could even turn it. And I couldn't wait to open mine. Oh. And I opened mine, and guess what? Well done. I didn't think of that. No, it was not pajamas. But I was deflated immediately. I can never snap. Did you hear that? And it was a dump truck, a remote dump truck. I looked over at my brother, and he goes, like an older brother would, right? And so where was I in my attitude at the moment? Where was my gratitude for a real gift? I wanted his. There's no way. There's just no way I could do that. So sometimes consciousness is in the wrong spot. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about a sign. Sometimes we just want to, give me a sign. Come on, God, give me a sign. Well, Dan Wakefield's book, How Do We Know When It's God? He lists a couple of good examples here. One of them is this woman's been dating this gentleman for, I assume a gentleman, for several years, and really is not sure whether she should marry him. And so she prays, and she's meditating and praying and asking God, give me a message, give me a sign. And so this one morning, out right through the window onto the carpet was a letter of the alphabet. And that letter was the first letter of his name. Oh, that must be a sign. Or was it a sign? Or was it just the sunlight on the carpet? Well, There's another story about a guy that had opportunity for a different position, different job. The downside was it was in another city. He had to move. He was, really entangled into his neighborhood and his community, and all his friends were there. So he did what some salespeople do, which is a Franklin close, where you do, here's my pros, here's my cons. God, give me a, bang, 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 bang. Gee, it came out just about even. How about if I put some weight on each one? Does it all add up? Does it add up to a decision? Hard to say. There's another thing that we do typically, and that is that we seek the advice of friends and therapists with the assumption. Now, I'm really assuming, I know what assuming is, but assuming that the godness is coming through them to me. Friends, therapies, sometimes practitioners and ministers in that same realm. But of course, they've got God on their side. Come on. We all have God on our side, right? So what is the answer? Despite the assurances given by Holmes and the Fillmores and the Bible and all the sacred texts, sometimes we still need a little sign. Another form of inhibiting God's goodness is perhaps distrust, an unexpected change or a circumstance in our life that trips us right up. Why me? And we think about, I have a little sidebar here about the California fires and some of the shootings and the war and the nonsense going on in this world these days is it's almost an absolute necessity that we do what we do today, you and I, right here in this room. And that is we plug back into the divine and realize the truth about you and me. And I was contacted by a friend of mine recently who was in tears. She was in tears because she just lost her job. And she was very good. She was very good at her job. And all of a sudden, poof, you're out of here. And so what was unique about this particular experience in my life was my thought patterns. And so as she was telling me this, my first thought was, well, I'm not doing business with that company anymore. I'm really chapped off at them. And then I thought, well, maybe I should find out exactly who the culprit was, who helped make this event happen in her life. I'm commiserating. I jumped right into her circumstance and wanted to be a pal. And then I thought, why not go into the closet of my brain and pull out my blame thrower and let all those guys have it that hurt her in her life. And that didn't work either. But my next thought was, I realized and I felt her sadness and her fear about the future. And so my compassion kicked in, which we all have. And my compassion was about the divine about her, the truth about her, and about me. And once again, I got an opportunity to pray with someone. And it was a wonderful experience because days later I called her and it was like, different person. Not because of me, but because of that receptivity in her brain that allowed her to say hello to the Spirit and realize that change in her life was a good one. Yeah. So I'm glad you agree with me with And you know, one of the things she said that I think we often do, and I do myself, is that within her fear and her future and stuff, that question is, what did I do wrong? You know, in reality, it wasn't what she did wrong. And as practitioners of prayer, you know, as so vividly experienced and demonstrated and taught by the Fillmores. I mean, Myrtle Fillmore, really? A whole lineage, lineage in New Thought is solutions and healing from prayer. And another one of those great experiences is the history room at Unity Village. Love the place. But anyway, common question is, how long or often do we have to pray to get a manifestation? Well, it'll be about as long as it takes, you know. And the beauty about the prayer that we have learned is that it's not rote. Some of you maybe strolled into the confessional. I don't know. But I used to do that as a child. And oh my gosh, you know, 6,000 Our Fathers and 250,000 Hail Marys later, I realized that that's not prayer. I love what prayer is today in my religious science life. And anyway, I think we all experience negative circumstances in our life, but they don't happen because we're not loved enough, relationships end because I'm not good enough, or all those things. And I really believe deep in my heart that all these things occur for the better. And so I ask you guys to ask yourself what good can come from this change. And there's one more thing I missed right there. Oh, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to do that one. Now, have you ever turned off your receptors? Yeah. I remember that one divorce. Well, no, not that. The last one was like, boom, I'm done. I just cauterized all my feelings, and I said, that's it. You know what? I can live without women. I can just gather friends that all have the same hurt as I do. We can commiserate together and hate life. And I tried that. You know what it was? Very boring. Very boring and not educational. There was no growth in me. There was no receptivity. There was nothing but bad stuff. So I had to do something rather radical. And I had to take my fear and kick it out. I had to reinvest my faith and realize that fear pays no dividends. And in fact, you guys have probably heard this one. On the acronym, false evidence appearing real? Of course you have. But have you heard this one? Feeling excited and ready. There you go. Now, Samuel, you are on it. Let me write that down. Samuel, A+. Now, Ernest Holmes says that fear blocks the more complete givingness of the Spirit to humankind. Fear arises from the mental attitude which limits the possibility and the willingness of Spirit to give us the good we so greatly desire. Isn't that the truth? We want it. So when we turn it back on, what do we get? Well, we get some unknown stuff. We get the possibility of really realizing that God is always expressing through all of us. And I envision it like the sunshine. You know, when the sun comes out and hits us, it doesn't come out only to those that are a member of this particular political party, or a skin color, or an occupation, or a bank account, or any of those things that we tend to separate ourselves with. Nothing like that. The sun hits us all the same. Isn't that a wonderful thing? The sunshine in the spirit, we mention oftentimes in the 12-step program, hits us exactly the same. So, let us take that in. Let us know that is the truth. It's a huge comfort for me. And as Charles said, I fairly sizzle with zeal and energy and enthusiasm, eager to do that which ought to be done by me today. And what is that? We did it here. We do it praying. We do it with meditation. We do it with that knowledge that the Spirit lives in and through each one of us. So I ask you today and encourage you to do all that, to commune and have communion with the Spirit during this holiday season. Listen and listen and listen. Stretch your spiritual source as much as you can and see what happens. And I'd like to ask you to begin right now and realize that this Thanksgiving holiday begins right here with prayer and receiving the joy of the divine. And you know, as Mark, my friend Mark in the Bible said, in chapter 11, verse 24, therefore I tell you, whether you ask for prayer, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. I love that because it's been so true in my life. I also wanted to share with you something that's on the dashboard of my car. This reflects up to the windshield, God is my source. So I have a gift for y'all today. So if you just pass these around, and take one for your daughters and sons and neighbors and friends, and because it is the truth. And I'll tell you what, I've been driving down the highway or mad as a hornet for whatever reason, and saw that thing in my windshield, and immediately my whole consciousness changes. So I hope that happens for you as well. So now, what is an exuberant receiver? We know what that is. Solutions to limited receiving, and hopefully you have become really acquainted with the awareness of the God presence within you and the source of all things. So now I'd like to close with a little meditation and a prayer. This meditation will take maybe 20 seconds. Well, we'll go, 20 seconds. What I'd like you to do is get really comfortable. Close your eyes if you would like to. And finish this sentence. I've got a bit of a sentence for you. I want you to replay this sentence in your mind and complete the sentence, okay? Here we go. I am open to receive. I am willing to listen. I am grateful for this holiday. I will Thank you. Now let us pray. Please accept these words as your own. In this moment, I recognize the divine unity in all things. God is everywhere, in everything, and certainly in and through each one of us. I am receptive to all the beautiful attributes of the divine. That includes grace, peace, harmony, joy, and love. Because I recognize that, I unify with it, knowing that God is my mind. God's mind is my mind. My life is God's life. I envision the receptivity of the communion and communication with God like an inverted umbrella, open wide above my head, that allows me to accept more and more of the goodness of God. It is as if my arms are wide open, thanking God for the gift of my life and the gift of those around me that bring individual loving care and sweetness of life to my life. And to know that the collective good in this room, in this community, right now is enough to power each one of us into a beautiful receiving season. This easily and lovingly translates into acts of giving for the pure joy of giving what we have received. I bless each one of you, I bless myself, and I bless this word, knowing that it is true as I speak it. And please join me in anchoring this truth by saying, and so it is, amen. Amen. Thank you.